Alrighty, how's it going? Jonathan here with Boston Collectors. I'm a little behind when it comes to Anakin Skywalker from the Clone Wars, which this was featured in the Ahsoka series, so it kinda goes hand in hand. Flashback and all, if you've seen it, you know what I'm saying. Now the reason I am behind on this video is, for example, with this photo, I wanted to show you all an idea about the difference between the two. You don't need my example, obviously, but we do have a couple of talking points. We'll also be discussing the previously released Anakin Skywalker, which is from the Clone Wars movie. There are a lot of similarities, but there are differences, and that's okay, even though the portrait is a major change. Again, we'll discuss that shortly. For now, we have Anakin Skywalker, the Clone Wars version, from the Ahsoka series at $265. Now the expected to ship date is next year between January and June 2025. And we also have our flexible payment options here with the NRD set for $26.50. And payments begin as early as December at $59.61. Now, as far as what we have included in the box, it's basically what you can expect. I mean, if you own the previous version of Anakin Skywalker, being this particular version, a lot of the things that you see here we will have, although granted the price is equal to each other. The previous one does have quite a few more things included. But with this being the live action interpretation, here's what they have to offer. We're not going to really go over the costume because it's pretty standard here. But the one thing that I do want to point out is the LED lit lightsaber, and I want to discuss his gauntlet later on, because I feel like it's a huge upgrade. We also have two brand new accessories, the lightsaber deflecting effects, which are attachable to the lightsaber blade. Chances are this will work with previous blades, unless of course they altered the blade, which I doubt they would. So these may possibly work with previous releases. As we head down, we have Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Captain Rex in hologram form, as well as one holocaster. In terms of the additional details, we have Anakin Skywalker sitting at TMS 129. Now with that said, this figure is still available for pre-order, so if you'd like to pick this up, as of this recording, he's currently available. Before we jump on over to Facebook though, let's go ahead and check out what the previous Anakin Skywalker had to offer. Now this is the exclusive version. Unfortunately, the collector's edition is on waitlist, but that's okay because for the same price, you're getting an exclusive poncho here. We have an interchangeable armor piece, we have a detonator, an array of hands, and we also have an additional cape. There is an LED light up arm that was included, which isn't photographed here, but we all know how that goes, and that's the reason that we have the vambrace the way that it is in the photo. We also received an LED light up saber with this particular release, and that's more than likely the major reason behind how poorly that gauntlet was designed on this release. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and kick it right back on over to Anakin Skywalker from the Ahsoka series and head on over to Facebook. So here we have Anakin Skywalker, the Clone Wars version as seen in the Ahsoka series. Now this is a major upgrade from what we received previously in a few ways. Beginning with the gauntlets and his gloves, we have more of a leather-like appearance here, even though it's molded in plastic. The belt is an all-new design as well, and the clothing stand out as well with a bit of a color change. As we continue though, the star of the show would be the Hayden Christensen portrait here, representing Anakin Skywalker. Now the portrait design is scary good. I really like the design of this, although my only problem is that it doesn't really fit in with the current Anakin Skywalkers that I have in the display. Now that isn't taking anything away from what we have. This is an older version of Hayden Christensen taking on that younger appearance of Anakin Skywalker, so it kind of depends on how you feel about it. Are you okay with an older interpretation of a younger version of the character? Not only that, we have a brilliant style to his hair, which is beautifully sculpted. This is absolutely incredible. I still genuinely believe that that was an artisan look to the photo with Ahsoka. It was a prototype and it was a tease, but the sculpting did look different, unless of course it was a different prototype and we didn't end up getting that one, but instead receiving this one. I don't know, but I think this would be the one that I would go for anyway. I don't really have a need for rooted hair in my collection. Another thing that stands out to me is the armor on his chest. It doesn't look as animated as the previous version, which I think looks pretty good. They're also using the separate rolling eyeball functionality, which makes me question if Anakin's using that same system Padme Amidala's got, which is popping this off. There's a whole mechanism underneath. It doesn't appear as one whole neck piece to me where you're taking the hairstyle off. And I say that because this portrait design is looking straight on, where there's more of an angle to this one, although they purposely don't show that. It would take away the realism of the photo, so I can't blame them. But before we move on, this looks incredible, wonderfully designed. Now, to really entice us, right? They went ahead and paired up Ahsoka with Anakin Skywalker as seen in the vision. I mean, you can't blame them for doing this. It looks great. I already have Ahsoka coming in. I was reluctant in picking up Anakin, although I did, but I'll tell you all why I did later on. For now, I think this was a great job on their part putting them together. Even more so, putting Captain Rex up here with whatever hologram table this is, mind you. I love whatever this is. We've not seen these holograms before outside of the LAT gunships, which came with Jesse. So it makes me wonder where these holograms are coming from and what table this might be coming with. The scene is inspired by the Clone Wars, which, again, you can't blame them. I'm still waffling on this Captain Rex here. I've not pre-ordered this one, mainly because I just don't see how he would fit in my collection right now. But let me know what you all think. Is this something you all would like to see? We may or may not pre-order unless, of course, there's interest and you all would like to hear our opinions on it. But for now, I don't really know. So this is where we get to really dive into some of the photography. And again, what drew my attention is the massive change to the overall outfit design. I do feel like it's a bit boxier, but that's okay because this is more of a realistic interpretation, so I'm not upset at it. I think I've just grown so used to the animated, slimmer style. There's a photo that I took very similar to this one that we'll showcase later on, but again, another example of how we can pose this character with the portrait, even though I have to admit, I feel as if adding another portrait design would have really sold this one. It doesn't really lend him well to a lot of the action poses. I don't know. It's a great design, but I just feel as though we needed one more. The next thing I'd like to discuss though, since it's right here in our face, is this gauntlet. Now the reason that I think that this one is going to simply slip off and we don't have to deal with the previous design of the Anakin Skywalker from the movie is that this doesn't have a light up arm. Instead, we have the LED lit saber with the cable. So I highly doubt that we'll even need to take the straps off and put those back on. This will more than likely be an all new design, simply taking it off and putting it back on. And I say that because we'll need to hide the cord, so chances are we'll have to feed it into the gauntlet in order for more of a seamless look to him holding the lightsaber. Again, I'm not too upset with the way that the clothes fit on him, but I think it's just going to take some getting used to. Again, I've got a whole bunch of animated looks in my collection, and I don't know, even when you look at this compared to the Revenge of the Sith Anakin, there's just so much going on that makes him look kind of clunky, but at the same time it is a prototype, so it's very difficult to say. I don't know if there's padding going on underneath his suit. I am a huge fan of the gauntlets and the gloves. It's got a realistic look to them that I'm a big fan of. I'd actually like to swap these out for, I wouldn't mind purchasing these separately from a part out so that I can change them on my current Anakin, to be honest. Another thing that I'd like to point out is we don't have that gold switch on the previous version of the Clone Wars Anakin. Something that we pointed out over on Sideshow, we have the deflecting blaster effects, and this is cool. I have to be honest. I recently started making smaller nods to maybe changing up the dynamic effects on the blade, but this is different. I like this. I'd love to see more of this going forward. And of course, hopefully these will work on the previous blades that we received in the past. We also have the sand base. I'm not upset at it. We don't have the footprints in the base, so that's fine, but this was included in the flashback, so I'm not mad at it. So now that we're here at the end card, again, I tried really hard to see if this neck was seamless or not, but I I'm going to stick to my guns. I don't think this is a molded neck piece, and I'm going to say that it's probably separated, but it's very hard to tell. As we look at the final card here though, we have the lightsaber deflecting effects, we have the LED lit lightsaber powered by USB, and we have all new holograms. I will say though, Obi-Wan does look slightly older, like this looked like his Revenge of the Sith interpretation, but the other two, obviously the Ahsoka version is brand new. The Captain Rex version here doesn't fit this iteration of Anakin. I would have loved to have seen the P1 version to him, but instead they took this straight from Captain Vaughn. I don't know, could it change later on? Maybe, but I highly doubt it. But I would have liked to have seen a P1 version of Captain Rex and maybe a younger version to Obi-Wan Kenobi here. Apart from that though, we have the separate rolling eyeballs. The boots here are different from the previous Clone Wars Anakin, and it looks more like the Revenge of the Sith interpretation. We have the sand base, and we actually have a pair of fists here. That's pretty good. We did not get these with the other Clone Wars Anakin. The relaxed hands here look far better. We have a pair of lightsaber hands. We don't have any force gesturing hands. That's kind of brutal, but he didn't exactly use the Force in the vision, so it is what it is, but it would have been nice. But as we back up here, this is looking pretty solid. But as we discussed the previous version of Anakin Skywalker at 265 versus what we have here, this kind of set you up for the kind of collector that you might be, which, again, do you prefer the older interpretation of a younger Anakin? Or do you prefer more of an animated style where the hair is slightly bulkier and you get a couple extra armor pieces, you get the cape, you get a poncho? It's really up to the collector on this one. And I have to admit, I'm personally okay with this one. I like the look of it. I like the slimmer model due to the animation. But I like this one too because it's a whole new portrait design and it sort of break that mold that I feel like Hot Toys has been forced to stay in with this portrait design, because this is that same look that we have across multiple releases. Whereas this one, it's all new. Yeah, it might, I've seen the memes. A lot of them are pretty funny, but this is all new, even though I really, really wish we received a different portrait design that would help aid in these kind of battle-like poses. Now, before we move on to if it's worth the price, I do have a couple of photos here that I want to share with you all. Now, I didn't get too crazy in terms of making sure that the photo was tack sharp. It's more getting the idea across and simply showcasing the differences. Now, Anakin, for some reason, on the right side don't have the scarring, whereas on the left, he does, in terms of the scarring on his cheek. Obviously, it's a major overhaul to the portrait design. One is younger, whereas the other is an older interpretation of a younger version of him. And we have that all-new hair design, which, again, looks absolutely incredible. But as we move on, a lot of the posing that you can get from the new version of Anakin Skywalker, you can actually get from the older version. But there are a lot of differences here where, depending on the collector, you could get nitpicky if you wanted to. The colors on the animated version are a lot more desaturated, whereas the colors on the Ahsoka series version, you have more of a saturated, distressed look to his outfit. And I say distressed in terms of it looks as though maybe they put a bit of rub on portions of the clothing, not necessarily distressed as in tattered. And we also have a huge overhaul to the gauntlets, which I'm not mad at that either. Again, I might have to go back and probably end up replacing those. I have to admit though, I do like that slimmer look to the hairstyle design versus the bulk on the older one. But it's so difficult to say if I would stick with this one or not. We'll have to wait and see. Again, I wouldn't jump on this one if you feel like you didn't have to, but if you're one of those collectors right now who it's either getting the older one now or getting the newer one later, and you don't own an Anakin Skywalker, I don't see why you couldn't wait until you got the latest one. My only question though is, I don't know if they'll continue to use this particular portrait style moving forward. Otherwise, there's going to be a disconnect between any of the other iterations of your Anakins. So for $265, is this Anakin Skywalker worth it? Being openly honest, there's a whole new portrait design featuring separate rolling eyes, right? The entire suit design is also brand new. Although I doubt the body is anything to write home about, chances are it's probably something we've had in the past anyway. We've got the separate rolling eyeball functionality on the portrait design. The blast effects, I'm not going to say that that's really part of the price tag. I mean, they're cool, but it's not going to add that much to it. And we also have the LED light up saber versus the light up arm, which that's a pain. That's a thing of the past now though. And my major point, we have 2 fists on this one. For $265, wow. For a collector like me, it isn't worth it, but for a collector who don't have any of the previous Anakin Skywalkers, and maybe you're thinking about either this one or the previous version, I'm going to say this is a great choice to have, mainly because if you like the Clone Wars version from the movie, and you also get a cape because we didn't see that, but we did see the poncho at one point, so we do have that included. The only negative with this one would have to be that gauntlet. The fact that it's separate, and I don't believe you can even see that in any of the imagery here. They do a great job hiding it, probably even edited that together. You don't see it. I have the STAP version of this one though, so I'm more than happy with what I have. But for any other collector, if you don't own a previous version of Anakin Skywalker, I think this is the one to get. Now granted, the interpretation, it's an older character representing a younger character. There's a lot of factors here that could really sway your decision. So it's kind of tough for me to say it's worth it when it's gonna be worth it for a particular kind of collector. But as I mentioned earlier, I went ahead and I picked this up. Expect a review on this. I'm gonna go ahead and do a bunch of comparisons with the previous Anakin Skywalker. So I hope you all enjoy that. I didn't use a coupon and I didn't have rewards to use, so that is definitely, I want to say it's over 300 ever so slightly, and it's kind of rough, especially for a guy like me who's like, I'm not really sure about this one. With that, thank you all for watching this video. I appreciate you. This is Jonathan with Boston Collectors. Let us know what you think, if you pre-ordered this or not. I'd be curious. We'll catch you next time.